Hey everybody, it's Rue Khosa the Boob Boss, and welcome to Bumps, Babies, and Boobs. Today we are going to be talking to one of the clinicians at Stepping Stone Pediatrics, and we want to talk about all things COVID. We now have a lot of mamas and papas, a lot of families that are delivering, right? And these families are second, third trimester, just when the COVID pandemic was picking up. So we've got a lot of new COVID babies that are coming up. We've got moms and dads that are getting ready to have babies. We've got birthing parents that are getting ready to welcome babies during a pandemic that doesn't seem to want to slow down. So we wanted to find out what it is like to welcome a baby during a pandemic. And who better to find out from than one of our nurse practitioners. I'm super excited about this because she's a nurse practitioner and she's one of the clinicians at Stepping Stone Pediatrics. So, Katie Kalmas, welcome to Bumps, Babies, and Boobs.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
How are you?
I'm great.
Oh my God, I am so glad to have you.
Yes, and I'm excited to have a nurse practitioner chat, but also to talk about all things COVID that I feel like I'm talking about every day, but that we can just reach a broader audience today.
I know. So you guys are in Bellevue, Washington. So not very far away from our clinic. And, right off the bat, because I think a lot of people are often surprised when I'm like, no, yes, I have a clinic, but I'm a nurse practitioner. And here we have another nurse practitioner owned and run clinic. So tell the audience about Stepping Stone Pediatrics. Let us know a little bit of history about it, when you joined, and what makes you unique as a nurse practitioner practice.
So Stepping Stone Pediatrics was founded about 8 years ago by a nurse practitioner, and since then it's grown over time. I've been with the practice for about a year and a half. But I always describe our practice as a boutique style practice in Bellevue. We're really small. There's 3 providers that work out of the office, and we have extended appointment times. Because we're nurse practitioners, we think it's really important to build those relationships with our families. So when we see babies and when we see children for wellness exams, we have an hour scheduled together, and that's face-to-face with the clinician. We don't use medical assistants. And then when babies get sick or kids get sick, we then have 30 minutes together. So it's this really exciting time where we not only get to figure out what's wrong and how to support you, but we also build these relationships, which is, I think, the foundation of what a nurse practitioner does and what makes us different than our physician colleagues. So yeah, like I said, I've been there for about a year and a half, and it's been really fun to really grow. And I see a ton of babies, which is perfect for what we're talking about today.
That is so awesome. So, I mean, I think it's mind-blowing, right? To be able to do patient care from, hi, welcome in today, all the way to goodbye. And the only person who you talk to is your provider. Because I feel a lot of times things are lost in translation, or people feel rushed. And it's like, oh, I wish I'd asked about that. But within an hour, or even just a sick visit for 30 minutes, like, you'll cover so much. I love that.
I know, I do too. And like I said, it's really fun. So we don't use that medical assistant. So I, weigh your baby, and then, the baby pees on me, and we laugh about it. And then we have this whole exam. And then, parents who are nervous about vaccinations, we've already built this trust and built this relationship. So then I'm the one that administers those vaccinations too. So it really is this beautiful continuity of care. And so if you send us a message, if you have questions, that it's one of the providers that you're going to get a response from, versus someone who's 10 steps back that's never met you before. So.
Oh my God. Okay. So I hope your phones are going to be ringing off the hook. Well, and that's another thing, because I remember when it came down to your practice, and I want to show your lobby, because especially with everything going on with COVID, you guys have been doing the whole contactless care for a very long time, where there's just minimal contact with a lot of people in your practice. And so this is what your lobby looks like. And if you, the audience can see the sign, it just says, please sign in and take a seat. So walk us through what the process is like. I mean, I feel like you were prepared for COVID before we even knew COVID was going to come. And then like COVID came, and the rest of us are like, this is what we should have been doing all along. So just walk us through what the patient experience is as they walk into your beautiful lobby.
So it has changed a bit. So it used to be that you would come in and you would check in on the iPad. Then that iPad would send us a message and tell us that you were here, and we would come out and get you in the lobby. We do it a little bit different now because of COVID. So our door is locked and we have a doorbell. So we do ask people to ring the doorbell when they get there, and we come out and greet you. We take temperatures. We talk about, history for the past 72 hours to make sure that no one in the family has been sick or ill. And then we welcome you in. We have hand sanitizer by the door, and then we bring you directly back into our exam room. So right now, we actually don't have anyone waiting in the lobby. If by chance I'm running behind, which I tried desperately not to do, have you hang out for a minute or two while I clean and sterilize the whole room before I bring people back. But right, we don't have a receptionist, we don't have billing, we don't have any of that. And so, when you come and see us, you just have exposure to one person. And again, it really is. We didn't have to make a lot of changes when COVID came, so that was pretty nice.
No, that is awesome. You mentioned your vaccine policy.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about that, because again, I think it speaks volumes to what you guys stand for as a practice and it being a boutique practice. So
Mm-hmm.
what is your vaccine policy?
So I came to the practice about a year and a half ago, and I actually, in addition to being a nurse practitioner, I also have a master's in public health. And so one of the greatest things that public health has ever done is create the vaccine for a variety of illnesses. And so we came together, the 3 providers in the office, and we said, we think that vaccines are the most important thing that you can do for your child to set a foundation for a healthy childhood and then a healthy, life in general. And we think that it's important that you do it. It's so important that we do require all of our families, all of our children to be fully immunized. Because if families can't trust us, then we don't know if going forward we'll have, a relationship that works together. Because we think that's important, we want to make sure that we have like-minded people that are with us, to keep everybody safe. And so we do have a really strict policy, but I think it's for the best for everyone.
Well, is there any wiggle room with regards to staggering vaccines? Do they have to get them the way they're scheduled? Are you guys doing a Dr. Sears method? What do you guys do with families who are like, well, I just don't want to do them all at once. I'm going to do them, but just not all at once.
Yeah. So oftentimes, we have people coming in from the birth center and they're like, gosh, we haven't had hepatitis B yet. We really want to wait till 1 month. And we're like, that's fantastic. My ultimate goal is that your child is fully immunized. And as long as we have a plan that we come up with together, a written plan to have that immunization occur, then we'll work with you. Because if your end goal as a parent is to immunize and my end goal as a clinician is to have your child fully vaccinated, then let's work together. So absolutely. We have some families that come in once a month for a vaccine, lots of families that do follow the CDC schedule. But again, if we all have the same end goal, let's work together to get there.
Got it. And it's interesting that you brought up hepatitis B, because I think the CDC released a statement not long ago saying, you know what, let's do it in the hospital. Can we just get it done in the hospital and get it taken care of? What are your thoughts on that? Because I've always been, even with the families that we do, I'm like, just get it within, that first month.
Yeah.
I wasn't really, I'm like, you need to get it. But as long as we get it within the first month, we don't necessarily have to do it at birth. What are your thoughts?
So I have all of this professional experience, but I have this personal experience too. So my oldest is 6, but when he was younger, he actually had to have a surgical procedure done at Seattle Children's. And it was back in the day when their surgical equipment hadn't been cleaned appropriately. And so children had been exposed to hepatitis B and hepatitis C. And so my child was fully immunized at the time, and I was so thankful that had occurred, because we went to the hospital thinking that everything would be safe, not necessarily anticipating this surgical procedure, and he was exposed to hepatitis B. So I really love it if you can just get it done when, we're doing erythromycin, or we're doing hepatitis B and vitamin K, the full meal deal. But I think definitely within the first month, is important just to start that process. But again, I am a little swayed just because from my own personal experience of my child being exposed and being so thankful that he had been immunized. So
What are your thoughts on liquid vitamin K versus the shot?
I actually don't have a lot of knowledge about that because I don't work in the hospital system. And so, as I think as long as vitamin K is happening, that's the key piece. And from my experience, most hospitals are administering the immunization or the actual injection, but I actually don't know a lot about the difference in the efficacy of the oral versus the injection.
Yeah, that's my hard stop in my families. I'm like, listen, we are going to get vitamin K.
Right.
Let me tell you
Yes.
what we are going to do. Everything else we can talk about, but vitamin K is not optional.
I agree with you on that. Yes, right. If you're not going to do erythromycin, and we've had, our screenings, and that's okay. But yes, I agree with that. We don't want our babies to bleed out. So
No, and it's like there's a very small chance that it could happen, but if it does, I mean, it's like catastrophic. I'm like, why? You can just give the shot. Yeah, that's the one that I dug my heels in for that one. But before we get into like the COVID stuff, now that people are excited about your practice, with everything going on and with the way you are running it as a boutique style practice, can families meet you before they sign up? Like, how is that working? Are you guys doing virtual appointments?
I love that question. So we were, sitting, I think it was like mid-March, and it was sort of a ghost town in all medical offices. And I looked at my partners and I'm like, people are still having babies, right? Like we need them, to be able to know, what's out there and who's out there. And so we had always had meet and greets before because we're such a different practice. We feel like people need to know that before they come in. It's like often love at first sight or no, thank you. And so, so we're doing virtual meet and greets right now. And I've gotten pretty skilled at giving a virtual tour and just sort of chatting about things like being nurse practitioner owned and our vaccine policy, but just showing some of our COVID policies, right? I think when people see that empty lobby, it's like, oh, I feel okay bringing my baby there. And when I say, we had an hour together during those wellness exams, we're like, oh, wow, that's amazing. So, yeah.
I know.
So
an hour just with you. Like that is, I think one of the, I do have an assistant in my clinic who usually more of a scribe than anything else. So that I can be hands-on. For the most part, I'm in there with the families for about an hour. Our appointments about an hour and a half. And it makes such a big difference to be able to see mom and really dedicate the time to answering everything under the sun. So I can attest to just how awesome it is
because
to
you're
be
able
able
to get past the surface layer, right? You get to talk more about, if your baby has a fever, go to the hospital and no bath until the umbilical cord falls off, right? You get to talk a lot about a lot more things than that. So.
Now let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Okay. I wish we could see it, right? Like I wish it looked like an elephant. So that'd be much easier.
Everybody wants to know, like, how can we protect our children from COVID? There's a lot of talk about, well, it doesn't really affect children, and should we be worried about it? What are you telling parents? How can they what is the general advice as a pediatric nurse practitioner? What are you telling people?
Well, I think the advice for newborns is different than children in general. So when I think about newborns, even before COVID, right, I always think about those first 2 months as hunker down, stay in, let those immune systems start to build, make sure that anybody who comes in contact with the babe is immunized, good hand washing, things like that. That's pre-COVID, right? Post-COVID, it's even more important that we're hunkering down, especially given all of the exposures that we're having in the beginning when we have a baby, right? So most of these women that I'm seeing have been pregnant and they probably haven't left the house for the past 4 months. And then they have a baby and they go to the hospital or they go to the birthing center. They have their nurses, midwives, OBs, doulas that they have exposure to. They come and they see me. They go to lactation. they go perhaps and have, their frenulums looked at. So there's all this exposure in the beginning. And so I tell people those first 2 weeks, you've had more exposure in those past 2 weeks than you've had in the past 4 months. So it's even more important that you sort of stay home and make sure that everybody stays safe. That being said, I want to make sure that we protect the mental health of our new moms and our new parents. And it's such a delicate balance, right? So how do we keep our babies safe, knowing that babies are less likely to get it than the rest of us, but children under the age of 1 tend to have more significant consequences or more severe illness. So even though they're less likely to get it, they're more likely to have a severe illness. So how do we balance all of that? And I think that we have to provide good education, good options, and good knowledge, and give parents those tools so then they can make decisions that are right for them and their families. I use an analogy for people. I call it a risk bucket. And so I often talk about myself. I have a pretty full risk bucket in my daily life, right? So I work with people every day. My children, because my husband is also a healthcare worker, have to go to daycare. So our bucket is pretty full of risk already. So we choose not to do anything else outside of work. I also feel an obligation to be pretty socially isolated because of the people that I care for. I feel like I can't go out and do things. But if your risk bucket is really empty and you don't see anyone else and anything like that, you can perhaps let one family into your circle during this time, or you can let your parents into your circle during this time to help care and support you during the newborn phases. So everybody has this, varying level of risk. And I think that you have to think about where you are and how full your risk bucket is and if you're willing to fill it up. So.
Yeah, I think it's been super hard. It's great that you mentioned the mental health. And I think going back to you being a boutique practice and having that hour, you can really dig into that, because this is the one thing that birthing parents are struggling with is the mental strain
Yeah.
and just the emotional exhaustion. I think we all get ready to have a baby and it's like, okay, I'm going to be the here and end all for this child. But to literally have to be everything all the time, nonstop. I see my parents and I'm just like I had this one family that was like, can you just hold the baby and go out there and we're just gonna sit? And I was like, yeah, I love cuddles. I will cuddle your baby all day long.
Yeah.
But it was like you're the only other person other than us and in the hospital who's held our baby.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. And we know, and I think that we have to acknowledge that there has to be a mourning process for these parents who are delivering during a pandemic. You don't get a baby shower. And whether or not that sounds silly, that's part of having a baby. You don't get to have a hospital lobby full of people waiting for you if you want that. And you don't get to have so many things. You don't get to have all of your friends drop by and bring you food and snuggle your baby and fold your laundry. And I think that we have to realize that there's grief involved in this process. Even though it's amazing and wonderful to have a baby, it's not what we planned. And I think it's sorrowful for some people.
It's really, really been hard. Now, so you're saying if children under the age of 1 are less likely to contact it, but more likely to have serious complications.
Right.
And there's been a lot of talk around Kawasaki's disease as one of the potential complications that children may get. There's talk about multi-system inflammatory syndrome. So what gives? Should we really be worried about this? Like, what symptoms as a parent should I be watching out for if I have a newborn versus a 1-year-old versus a toddler that's much older when it comes to COVID right now?
So with, and all of us have fever on our brain, right? And a fever in a newborn up to 60 days of age, it's a no-brainer. You go straight to the emergency department because they need a full workup. So, but what we know is that only about 60% of kids get a fever with COVID. So that's not that hallmark sign like we have in adults. And it's much more nuanced than that. Sometimes it can be a stuffy, runny nose, Well, oh my gosh, newborns are
Everything that we-
snorty, snuffly things, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's what, they snorting and snuffling and loud, noisy breathers. So that's hard. And then, often vomiting, diarrhea, poor appetite. Those are really common. And for newborns, one of the biggest things that we're seeing is just rapid breathing. And so I always really like to talk about if your baby's breathing more than 60 times a minute, that's when we're concerned, mostly because if they're breathing that fast, they can't eat. But that's a reason to be seen. So we're often seeing, that tachypnea, breathing more than 60 times a minute, and that's, a big sign. And so, again, in newborns, poor feeding, lethargy, and then that rapid breathing, those are the big things. For our 1 and 2 year olds, if we're worried about that that multi-inflammatory process, kids are sick. So we know that they look ill. So, lethargic, unable to eat, high fevers. There's not a question in your mind. It's one of those where you look at your kid and you're like, something's not right. And I always encourage people to follow their instincts when that happens. And that's a do not pass go, head straight to seek care. So.
Okay. I'm so glad you mentioned that because a lot of times people are like, oh, I should call. I'm like, no, don't call me.
No.
Like you call me and tell me all about it on your way to the ER. But
exactly.
I need to make sure that you guys are on your way to the ER. And at this time, would you be saying to people, because your clinic isn't open for like after hours or extended hours, so are you saying people should go to Children's? Where should people be going right now in Seattle?
Yeah, so we're open. We are open till about 6. We typically, non-pandemic times we're open later, and we're open on Saturdays. But we have this amazing resource of Seattle Children's here, and we have our Bellevue location, our Everett location in Federal Way, and of course in Seattle. And those urgent care hours are those evening hours, and I think they're open till 10:30 now. I haven't checked recently. So they really are this beautiful like evening bridge, and then they're open 11 to 8 on Saturdays and Sundays. But I will never say like, oh my gosh, why did you take them in when they had a fever, right? Why did you do that? So I'd much rather us see your child be seen than not be seen, right? And again, those parental instincts are so important, and we need to learn to trust those.
Mm-hmm. I always say to my parents when they like, is something wrong? What should I do? I'm like, listen, so one of two things. If you tell me something's wrong, I am either going to dig until I find it or I prove that you're crazy. But one way that we're going to get to the bottom of things. Because I really do, there's that thing in your gut that just tells you something is not right with my child.
Yes.
And we just put out the signs and symptoms that we should be worried about, especially in infants, and that's the rapid breathing, lethargy, which is cooked noodle, not trying to wake up, not trying to do anything. That baby just is limp and tired and listless.
Yeah, that's a great description.
With newborns, especially babies, if they're not eating, they're going to get dehydrated. So we want to be watching to make sure, and if they're breathing fast, they're going to be blowing out all that extra moisture as they're breathing. So again, dehydration. So we need to make sure those kiddos are eating. Now, I have a 3-year-old, and I feel like everybody knows Tana because Tanatwa is just, he's spirited.
I have a 2-year-old, almost 2-year-old that is also spirited. So,
and for the life of me, we can't get this kid to wear a mask. So he likes the idea. Like he'll put one on. He's like, I got my mask. If you don't have a mask, he's going to ask you where your mask is. And he's going to pull off his mask to do that. And then it's a wrap. So how stressed out? Because I feel like now I'm like, you're just not going anywhere. And he's a social butterfly, but I feel he's becoming more of a recluse because I don't want to take him places because I know he's not going to keep his mask on.
Yeah.
So what do we do?
Oh gosh, the question of the ages. So, and I have an almost 2-year-old. I think I've mentioned that, and so she'll be 2 in 2 weeks. So we've actually been practicing over time. I have an easier time of it because she loves accessories, and so this has turned into, let's choose it, right? Let's choose our fabric. We've attached bows to it. We put it along with our sunglasses where we don't leave the house. And so if she leaves it on for 2 minutes as we're practicing, because she's not yet 2, so she shouldn't be wearing it, then it's a success. And so I recommend practicing at home. Obviously, when we have the toddlers that are just doing this all the time, we're doing more harm than good, right? But it's our job at home is to practice, practice, practice. Just like, when they start walking, how they don't want to wear shoes or socks either. So, but again, we have to wear shoes and socks when we go places, but we build into that. Usually we can like take off our shoes and socks in the car, things like that. So we just have to treat masks the same way. And we're just building to get to that process. So I'm not super stressed about it. But if you have a 4-year-old who's refusing to wear it, who's almost turning 5, we're gonna put a little bit more emphasis on it because because now we know we have these policies in place. So yeah, so make it fun, let them choose. I recommend always, having 2 options, right? The greatest parenting tip ever is giving kids choices of what they're gonna wear. So not like, are you gonna wear your mask? But you are gonna wear your mask, but which one?
Which one? You
Yes.
get to choose. And then just make sure that everybody got that. It's 2 and older.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like a lot of parents are, so, and I guess, so 2 things. So what do we do with the ones that are younger? Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, I get it. I get why they shouldn't wear one. But
Mm-hmm.
then at the same time, we also have the 1-year-olds who, if they do get it, they're really going to get sick.
Mm-hmm.
So just stay home and call it a day.
Yeah. And that's what we do in my family. And I don't know, like I said, we in our family, we can't really take more of a risk. And so we don't. We go, one of our favorite places to go is we like to go to school parking lots because they're empty. And my oldest can ride his bike and my youngest can run around and push her stroller and practice on her balance bike. And, we spend a lot of time walking. But then I also have to remember that I live in a place that, I don't live in a tiny apartment. I have a backyard because I live out in the burbs. And so I want to make sure that we also acknowledge the fact that that's hard for a lot of people to be able to find that social distancing. So again, if you're going to go someplace, make sure that 1-year-old isn't grabbing all the things like they like to do. So might be time to pull out the baby carrier or the toddler carrier again if you're going to go places. So
Yeah, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. And
yeah.
what do you do when you got to go grocery shopping? I've had people say, why are people bringing kids into the grocery? I'm like, and leave them where? This
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's not an option. Sometimes, you're a single mom or you're a
Yep.
single parent. We don't have the social contacts and connections that we had before. You can't
Mm-hmm.
just, it's so many layers to this for people with children that just
Mm-hmm.
make it super complicated.
Well, and I think that we need to remember that we have to leave our judgment at the door, right? We have no idea why that mom is in Target with her 2 children, and it's not our place to know. And that we need to support her because she's probably trying to keep that mask on that 3-year-old too and have her mask on and perhaps do the grocery shopping because she's an essential worker and doesn't have daycare or whatever it is. And then we don't know why people are out and that we all are doing this our very, very best, and all of our best looks different from one another.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Less judgment, just more love and more.
Right? We need so much more love right now. Life is so hard right now.
I know, like check on anybody with a 3-year-old. Anybody with a teenager is struggling. You need to check on them, please. Trust me, we're having it hard. So I'm gonna ask you a question, and you can totally say I'm not answering that.
Okay.
But should schools reopen?
Oh my gosh. So, look, I have to touch my face. That's how. You know what? I go like this about it. I think 2 days ago. So my oldest was in kindergarten and we'll go to first grade and we go to public school, and I love public school. And 2 days ago I was gung ho and he was going to school and it's important. He's a social butterfly and he needs this. And so many and kids, we know that he's 6 and he's less likely to get it and less likely to have some of those severe side effects. And then yesterday I was reading some of the new research that had come out, and all I was reading about like the bad things. And I'm like, no. So I don't know the answer. I do wonder if some of us have a social responsibility to keep our kids home if we can. so that children that need the care or that need to be able to go to school have that opportunity. So sometimes I wonder if there's a social responsibility that we have to make as parents. If you can work from home and keep your kids home, so essential workers' kids can go to school. But again, that's how I feel today. I'll feel a different way tomorrow.
No, keeping up with news cycles has been really, really difficult. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the most challenging thing. I love your tips on how to get kids to wear masks. I think one of the next question was going to be, how do we prepare parents for going back to school? But I think because I was like, well, Tana's not going to school because he's never going to wear a mask. Like, it's not going to. So I'm not even going to bother with him. But then, and I get the social responsibility because there are people, we are fortunate enough to have a little bit of help with my mom here and my husband
Mm-hmm.
working from home. So technically, I should be able to keep my children at home. I just don't know if I want to.
Well, and are you a terrible teacher like I am? Because I'm a terrible teacher. So I think
Okay,
I'm a good nurse practitioner, but I'm not a good teacher.
I was like, my 7-year-old is seriously going to have PTSD. He's going to be like, I hate learning. Mom messed it up for all of us. And we expelled the 3-year-old. Like, we were just like, you're expelled from preschool. Not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We pushed through with the 7-year-old, but trying to teach both of them. And then I realized how much I just don't even remember about learning. I'm like, how do
Mm-hmm.
you do that?
Yeah,
So,
and math. Don't even do math because you'll do it wrong. So
oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not the only one struggling out here because I was like, this is hard. So yeah, so I think I get that there is that social responsibility, and I think we all need to take a, good look at ourselves, especially because, like you said, essential workers, right? We
mm-hmm.
need our nurses, we need our doctors, we need our nurse practitioners, our PAs. We need all the essential staff to stay healthy so that, if we need them, they're there. But
But don't we need our kids to stay mentally healthy, right? We were talking about these new moms and aren't we worried about their mental health, but our kiddos too, right? So we know that the NAPNAP, which is the National Association of Pediatric Nurse Practitioners, they came out and said schools should open in the fall. And the American Academy of Pediatrics said schools should open in the fall. So these are two huge pediatric groups that are really saying schools need to open in the fall. What does that look like? I don't know. Let's look to the CDC for that. But they're saying that there's more harm than good from keeping schools closed when we think about mental health, abuse, calls to child protective services are down, likely not because abuse is down, but because our mandated reporters or teachers aren't seeing these kids. And so it's not an easy answer.
yeah, and like I was saying with Tana, my social butterfly, I feel like when he sees people now, he like cowers and
Mm-hmm.
he runs away. You can tell, like, I feel so bad for all the, kids who are going through that normal social anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
right? Stranger danger, because they don't know strangers. Like, everybody, everything is just, it's magnified.
Well,
And
yeah, and potentially could hurt us, and unintentionally. How scary is that for a 7-year-old to think about? Yeah.
yeah, and not being able to see people's faces. Like,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's covered in a mask, and for kids, that's now very normal for them. Like, my 3-year-old who doesn't wear a mask will always ask you, "Why aren't you wearing a mask?" I
Sounds like
don't
a
know.
3-year-old. Yeah.
He's like, "I'm not talking to you. Don't have a mask." I'm like, "You don't have a mask." But just not being able to see people's faces, to read facial expressions.
I know. What's been fascinating is that because we see babies so frequently because we have so many wellness exams. What's been great is that we wear a mask, but obviously the babies can see my wrinkles when I smile because I have these 6-month-olds that come in and I'm smiling at them with my mask on, and they're smiling back at me just like they did before I was wearing a mask. And so are they learning? So are these tiny babes who are just learning how to read cues, learning a different way than our 6 and 7-year-olds have learned? I think so. So perhaps the adjustment won't be the same for them, but definitely our elementary school kids. Oh well, and then our high schoolers and our adolescents. Hard times.
It is hard time. So, talking about mental health and children, what resources do you guys lean on? Where are you sending people right now? Because I do feel more so than ever, especially with our teenagers who thrive on just that peer connection.
Yeah.
What are you and how are you directing parents? What should we be watching out for? Suicide rates are high with children. They're extremely high with children of color. Like, what should we be? Yeah, what can we do? What do
Yeah.
you think?
So, we're really lucky in our office. In addition to our nurse practitioners, we actually have two counselors working out of our office who are just seeing pediatric patients. And we actually had one, and her schedule was so full that we hired another one. And actually, I love it because I'll put a plug in for us. He has a ton of opening in his schedule because he just started about 2 weeks ago. So we have this amazing resource right now. So we can do a lot of this like virtual or face-to-face counseling for kids because a lot of times that's just what they need. But teenagers, they like to lock themselves in their bedroom anyway. But now they don't have that reason to like get up to go to school. So at least there is some social time. And so you're really looking to see if these children are withdrawn, if they're still, attempting to make connections with their friends via Zoom, via Facebook, whatever it is. And if you're not seeing that, if you're not, if you are noticing a really big change, do something early, do something now. We don't need to medicate all children, but we do need to give them an outlet to talk to someone else who's not in their family. Teenagers don't want to talk to mom and dad anymore. Yeah.
It's not
And
cool anymore.
well, and we don't, and how can we understand what they're going through? We didn't live through a pandemic when we were teenagers. And so, I'm so lucky that we have this electronic format. I mean, even something like this is amazing. But we are seeing teens just withdraw more and more. And so it really is up to parents, caregivers, to intervene and say, let's do something about this. And even just talking to somebody else, I think is helpful.
Awesome. And then before we wrap up, I want to ask, and again, this is kind of COVID related because I feel I've also become that mom who's like, here, take my phone. Turn on the TV. Do something. Just it's okay. Just
Leave me alone.
2 hours. Who invented 2 hours of screen time? They do not have a 3 and a 7-year-old because I mean our 7-year-old is doing occupational therapy right now, and I said to his therapist after he wrapped up today, and I was like, okay, are there any Xbox games that my child should be playing that are at least educational? Because seriously, I'm like, okay, I'm going to let him play. And sometimes he's gonna play a lot of Xbox because mommy has to work. Mommy, even though I'm home quite a bit, I still have stuff that I have to do. I sometimes have patient calls, and to be honest, like, yeah, I've broken every screen time rule. So what are your thoughts on that? Please make me feel better because.
So, I worked in early intervention, birth to 3 for years and years and years. And I was always very, very strict about screen time. No screen time for kids under the age of 2. I followed that with my oldest to the T. And now, woo! It's Mickey Mouse Club all day, every day. It's not actually all day, every day, but we have a schedule that we don't do any screen time in the morning. We eat, and then everybody has quiet time, even my oldest, where he has some quiet time, and then he gets to come down and watch a little TV while the other one is sleeping. And then at night, when I'm all done, they definitely watch TV, which is nothing that I've ever done in the past. So I recommend that as a parent, we sort of figure out options that we're okay with them to watch, right? I don't give access to YouTube because I think it's a wormhole of just where can they end up, right? But I am okay with certain shows, and let's talk about the show that you watched and what did you learn when you watched that show. But yeah, I think that those screen time rules were made in a different time and a different day, and and they're going to be okay.
My 7-year-old, I'm like, okay, you can watch that show, but you have to write me a book report. I'm like, that makes me feel. Like, can you write a book report about it? We watched this really cute movie on Netflix yesterday about this girl that was stealing stuff and being mean. I was like, okay, if you can write a book report about Surly, we can watch another movie the next day.
I
Because I'm
love
like,
it.
how else do I get, you know, we have to do something, because
Mhm.
honestly, I mean, teachers out there, every teacher out there, God bless you.
Oh, there's a
Because
reason why I'm not a teacher.
how do they do it? How do they
Yeah.
do that, kids? We have a question from Nia Rudolph, who wants to know, what do you recommend for socializing kids during the pandemic?
Man, that is something I struggle with every day in our family. A lot of people have done virtual play dates where everybody is going to do the same. Everybody orders a Kiwi crate and you like do the Kiwi crate together on Zoom, or you get the same coloring page and you do that together. At our house, Yahtzee is a great, game that both people can play if they have dice. And you practice math, by the way. We really love social distancing bike riding. I think bike riding is a great activity. Something like playing frisbee out in a field where there's not a lot of contact, but everybody washes their hands first. And so I think anything outside. And then I also think, and what we know from the recommendations from the health department, is that if you can find a core family to sort of socially distance with, and you know what they're doing, then that's a great option too. And a lot of people are finding that that they're getting this core family and that they're just doing a lot of things together. We personally don't have that in our life, and so I think I have a sad 6-year-old a lot, but
I know I don't know. I hope we can revisit this in a few months and
Mhm.
just see how we came out of this. Like, I'm curious to see what a year from now is going to look like, and just revisit, I mean, the birthing parents, the kids, and just see where everybody is. Just kind of keep a pulse on where everybody is, because it's,
Yeah, and I think that we have to remember too is that even when our kids seem okay, they may not be okay. And so it's our job. I don't know. I don't know if you do this too, but some days I'm like, today's just not a good day. And I can express that and I can verbalize that, but I think we also have to remember that sometimes today is just not a good day for some of our kids. And so we have to have a lot of grace, for them. And I think we're probably all seeing more behaviors as well. Or I know everybody's seeing more behaviors. I talk about it a lot in the clinic. So a lot of grace too. And in the end, we'll come out as a different country, a different society. And I hope it's for the better. But we have a long way to go.
no, I know, I
I
know.
know. I know.
It's It's crazy. But I want to put up, so Stepping Stone Pediatrics is giving away this newborn essentials gift set. We're going to go ahead and put up the ticker so you can click on the link to go ahead and enter. We will announce the winner on Monday by 9 a.m. So go ahead and enter, click on the link. Winner will be announced on July 16th at 9 a.m. in the morning. And that is what you're giving up. Thank you so much for this generous, generous, generous giveaway. You
It
guys
was
are
it was
awesome.
really fun to sort of, I know what we often, tell people that a humidifier, we're always telling people they need a humidifier, but to really go through and say, like, these were my favorite things and these are things I recommend almost daily. So, it's fun to put that together.
I love it, love it. Katie, thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything else that you want people to know about Stepping Stone Pediatrics before we sign off? I want to make sure that I go ahead and put, here we go. This is where they are. So they are in Bellevue. So if anybody is looking for a pediatrician, you've got Katie right in front of you, and she's awesome. We see a lot of patients together.
Me
So
too.
we've
Yes.
done back and forth referrals, and nothing but amazing stuff from your patients about you. So I can attest to the fact that she really is good, because I
Mhm.
get to
Well, and likewise, I always hear great things about when they come back and see me after they've had a visit with you. So,
aw, love it, love it, love it. But you can, they're in Bellevue. Email
mhm,
them at office@steppingstonepeds.org.
mhm.
But yeah, is there anything else that you want us to know about your boutique style practice? Or yeah, anything at all?
Um, I think that, if there are people out there that are like interested or they want to know more about us, we can always schedule one of those meet and greets. They can go online and schedule that on their own. You don't even need to call our office. We do so much electronically that it's really nice when you're awake in the middle of the night with a baby that you can schedule a visit or send us a message. But we love supporting local families, and we support, we see a lot of families from really diverse backgrounds, and that's what I love. And we also accept a wide range of insurances, and we also accept all of the Medicaid plans, which is a key thing that a lot of pediatric practices aren't doing. But it's imperative that regardless of your insurance status or where your family comes from, that you're welcomed with open arms into our clinic. So,
oh my God, thank you so much for mentioning that. I forgot to ask about payment and insurance. So there are practices that don't take Medicare or Medicaid. So awesome that you guys are able to do that, because again, like you said, your insurance status should not be a barrier.
And it shouldn't affect your quality of care. You should still get an hour with your provider, regardless if you have public insurance or private insurance. All of these little human lives are worth the same. And we really feel that.
Love that. Love that. Love that. Well, Katie, thank you so, so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure having you on Bumps,
Yeah.
Babies, and Boobs. We will catch up. I definitely want to catch up with you after this is all done, and we can hopefully debrief if we make it out with our little ones.
Yes, we can. Yeah, because I think our kids are almost the same age.
My mind might be my liver. I don't know.
Oh, mine's gone. Yeah.
All right, Katie. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us on Bumps, Babies, and Boobs. We will be back next week with Belgrove OBGYN, and we're going to be talking about delivering or welcoming or the birth process, right, in a hospital system. We've talked to midwives. This time we're going to take you to Belgrove OBGYN. I'm talking to two of my most favorite OBGYNs who deliver at Overlake Hospital, and we can talk about what that process looks like. So I can't wait for you guys to join me next week. Thank you for being here tonight, and good night. Bye, Katie.
Bye.